June.
Hello everybody, and welcome to the Give Today podcast. So for those that don't know, my name's Bryony, company secretary, coffee maker, web developer, graphic designer, social media blog body.
Good grief. That is quite a lot of things. My name's John James, and I am director of the Hope Revolution CIC. I also take care of the product inputs and liaising with charities and dealing with suppliers and bringing in new businesses for the local heroes.
I feel like he's doing himself a disservice there.
Yeah, and also, yeah,
He's
I am.
founder of the Hope Revolution, general genius behind the whole thing.
Oh, cheers. No, don't say those kind of things. So we thought that it would be good to just start doing a podcast for anybody that's interested in things that we get up to each week, the charities that we speak to. Sort of, we're going through like a bit of a change of our business at the moment, aren't we?
Yeah, I guess things won't necessarily change for people purchasing donations.
No.
Apart from the name that they type in at the top.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But it's a big step forward for the company in terms of putting the charities even more in charge. So that's super exciting.
So we thought it was just going to be a good idea to share with people some of the conversations that we have with charities. And these people don't always get a platform that they need.
There's such lovely people out there, and we just want to give them a little bit of a spotlight, I guess.
Yeah, that is right. So,
and especially when we all need a little bit of cheering up. Bit of good news.
So, what have we been doing this week, Bryony? What's been on the agenda this week?
This week has been web development.
Web development, yeah.
Which sounds, I think, more exciting than
Bloody
potentially
doesn't.
it is.
It sounds boring. It's actually, I'd say, it's more exciting than it sounds.
We've got a fantastic web developer, Roy. He's been working late into the nights with us.
Yes.
Luckily, he's got a new baby, so he's up anyway. But he's been putting up with us going, "Oh, it's broken. What have we done?" all the time.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of like over a month in the making that we've been working on these new developments to the website. I guess this all came from the fact that we had an amazing Christmas.
Yeah.
In terms of donations, personally it was all right, but business-wise, obviously, charities saw a lot of donations, and it sort of gave us the encouragement. Is that the right word?
Impetus? I don't know.
Yeah, to want to give them more things and develop what we're doing. I mean, because there'll be people who are listening who are like, well, what website? What are you talking about? I mean,
who are you? What do you do? You keep talking about this business and website.
For the last, I've just been actually writing out the story for our new website and realised that this all began in February 2018. We're 3 years in now. Which
is mental. I don't know where time has gone.
I guess, yeah, so it started off really as just a small little idea to do locally. I was working with my friend Chris on a mobile app for a hotel brand. One of the things that I was tasked with doing at the time was to work on the room service element of this app for the hotel. And obviously it was people choosing from a pre-written list of items. This is what I need right now. This is what I want. And February 2018 was the beast from the East year. And I was outside once in Levenshulme, where we used to live. I just thought, why isn't there a business that does this for homeless charities, where they say, here's the things that we need right now, today, and then people can buy them?
Because it was so bitterly cold. Much like the weather we've just had, to be honest.
Yeah. So I started going to the Manchester Homeless Partnership meetings, which were once a month, which was just like a group of charities getting together with local businesses to address the issues of the month in the city and how collectively they can work together to solve these issues on a practical level. And it was fantastic. It was really, really good. Some great people there. And one of the people that I met there was Lenny, who has now become one of our directors of the company. So,
and I think a lot of the first charities you brought on board came through
the
connections you made in those meetings.
Yeah, so I was just talking to as many people as I could at these meetings and telling them about this idea that I was doing. But the thing was, obviously, when you go into anything like this, I came from like a nightclub background. I a nightclub promoter by trade. And so it's like when you go into a sector that you don't know anybody, you are not known. You don't have a track record. You're just saying, I want to do this thing. People are a bit skeptical about what your intentions are behind wanting to do this.
And what your motive is.
Yeah, so I started going to those, meeting with those people, and I told Lenny about it, and he said, I know a guy who can... So originally it was just going to be an app, because I was working on the app for the hotel. It was just an app where we were going to put together a list of all the items needed in that city. So it wasn't what it is today. It was one big list, and then when somebody goes on and buys it, I will send it to the charity. But it was a way of like collecting all that data together and using it rather than having everybody's individual list, putting it all together and promoting that as, you can support all of these charities in one place sort of thing.
Yeah, that it was much more about supporting your local area rather than supporting one specific charity. But I think that was quite a difficult thing to sell. It was a difficult sell.
Yeah, and also we only had maybe 4 charities signed up on this, which was Big Issue North, Coffee for Craig, Audacious Foundation, and LifeShare, yeah. And so with that core, so we started developing that mid 2018, and it was that's the start of that summer. We started with Martin, who developed the app for us, and we paid for it ourselves. It cost quite a bit to do, but then it wasn't really we were looking to do it as a business. But it was just because I had my own business, you were finishing your PhD.
It was your passion project, really.
Yeah.
It was the thing that we'd talk over in the evenings. We'd sit on a Saturday and work on. But in the day we had other things going on.
And one of the things we used to say was how cool it would be just to have one person buy a sleeping bag for going to bed knowing that someone's bought a sleeping bag and that tomorrow it's going to be arriving at a charity and a homeless person is going to, or a rough sleeper is going to have this sleeping bag. And so I guess so we started developing that. We released it 2018.
I don't think it was. I think it took us a year to develop it.
Good grief.
Because I seem to remember that 2018, that Christmas, you were pushing so hard to get it done, and time just got away. It was so frustrating. And looking back in hindsight, I think if we'd have started with a website, it might have been a bit easier. But
I think at the time,
who does the easy way? No,
but what it was that I was working predominantly in the student market with the nightlife work that I was doing. So you're comfortable in the area that you work in. So I knew that I wanted to do something that was aimed at students, and that I knew that students didn't have second-hand items to give. And I knew that myself at 28, I think I was then. Yes, that would make mathematical sense. I didn't have a spare coat or spare sleeping bag, but I did have a bit of extra money that I would want to give. So obviously I needed to develop something that was for students, because that was what I was comfortable in doing, and an app seemed like the best way to do that, because at the time everybody was kind of going mad for apps. All companies
they were I think there was a Manchester Student Life app coming out, and Freshers Week
There's
apps,
all sorts.
and
but big businesses were starting to do it. That's why we were doing the thing with the hotel brand. They were starting to get on board with this. It almost felt like and it's not happened, but it felt like maybe this is going to overtake websites, because it was always on your phone, click of a button type thing.
Now it's sort of become that you just expect a company to have an app.
Yeah, and it's not the be all and end all really. They're quite limiting really, aren't they? But anyway, we developed the app for the next year, and then released it on the 11th of November 2019. That's right. Yeah, that is right.
And that was, very, very shortly before that, we put all the paperwork to become a registered non-profit. So we are a community interest company.
Yeah.
And I think, just briefly for people that don't know what that is, it means we are asset locked in a similar way to a charity. So we can't just take money out. If the company was to wrap up, the money gets distributed to a charitable organisation. The money in the business and the assets given away. And that we have to be focused towards making a difference in the community. rather than making a profit. So we're not a profit-driven company at all. It's all about...
And like we're held accountable of our finances as well, aren't we?
It's all about making the best impact for... I mean, our official community is homeless charities and the people they support. We also...
That will have to change because we now are supporting lots of other charities.
Yeah, I think you will see that change. It will get bigger and better.
So, I think so that we're not like dragging this out for absolutely hours and hours. So yeah, obviously we did that. It went well. The first Christmas that we had, we did in the first like 2 months from launch, we did about £500 worth of donations. Just from pushing it out for those 4 charities and blah, blah, which was amazing. Like that Christmas, we were like blown away that so many people had used it. And...
I mean, I still remember that first order coming in on the app that wasn't someone we know. Because
I do too. Yeah,
you start a business, the first people to buy things are, friends and family.
Yeah.
So that first one that came in that was
like, I don't recognise that name.
Oh, the excitement! And you know what? I would say that excitement hasn't gone. Every single donation that comes in.
Yeah.
I get like a little bubbly, excited feeling.
Yeah, so we get an email that just says, "Nice, you've got an order," and that money's not coming to us. It's going to a charity, but it's still exciting that someone's using what we do. And I think one of the things that that hasn't changed. I remember like the first order that we got that was over £100 as well. I still remember that one. Like we could talk for hours on this subject.
Oh,
we don't want to make our...
We have talked for hours. No, we haven't really.
No, we haven't. No.
But yeah, so it started off as an app.
Mm-hmm. Started off as an app with 4 charities.
And very quickly, I decided that I wanted to try and flex my limited web development skills. Mm-hmm. And we built up a website that would enable people to do exactly what you could do on the app, but on a website. And I think that part was partly because we realised that the audience was not just students.
No.
It was everyone. And so we needed to make that as accessible as possible to people.
Yeah.
And so that was when...
Yeah, because, sorry to interrupt. So it was, and no offence to anybody with these names, but we were getting Normas and Reginalds and, not students. Yeah.
Yeah, not students.
So we realised, let's make this more accessible to everybody, really. And
as easy to use as possible.
Yeah.
And then, so that first website, the Hope Revolution website, was our second baby, I guess.
We haven't got a baby. We are engaged, by the way. We're not just we don't just know each other on a friend or colleague basis. We are engaged, so we're a couple that runs a business together.
And that was the first time that we gave the charities their own shops, so you could go on, because we were seeing that people were saying, "Oh, could you send mine to LifeShare? I'd quite like mine to go to LifeShare."
Yeah, what the public were asking for these things.
And so it's like, people they like to know not just where it's going, but they like to have choice. We're giving them the choice to pick what item they want to donate, and then we send that item to the charity. Mm-hmm. But they also want the choice to pick which charity they want it to go to. And so, of course, we will give you what you wish. Mm-hmm. And that was a really big step forwards.
But then what started happening was a pandemic.
Very soon after the website launch, in fact.
Which sort of was a crazy time because we went from 4 charities to over 50, pretty much in the space of a few days, because word spread of what we were doing and the fact that all the items that we sent were brand new. And at the beginning of the pandemic, there was a fear from people that they couldn't, when they were being sent secondhand items, they had to house them in a storage lockup for up to 2 weeks to have them disinfected. And there was people didn't really know what was going on.
And there was a severe lack of PPE.
There was a severe lack of PPE. Yeah. Let's never forget that, by the way.
Yeah, so they couldn't. A lot of charities had to stop taking secondhand donations, and add on to that, they lost access to a lot of their fundraising opportunities.
Yeah, that's true.
So they were really crying out for help, and we were there to help, because at the same time, unfortunately, your industry that you work in
was done. Yeah.
Disappeared overnight.
Because the thing is, what people don't realise is that we don't charge charities for this service. We don't add anything, any profit onto ourselves for donations or anything like that. It's an optional. If they want to give us any extra, they can. We don't take anything. So if nobody offered to give us any donations, any additional
Any contributions.
So we would make nothing from this.
So how it works is when you purchase an item, that money goes into a reserved pot, goes into a pot of money, and we go off and we buy that exact item you've purchased to be donated. We go and source it. We get it from our suppliers, and we get that sent directly to the charity. And that money that you have given us in that purchase transaction goes directly onto that item.
Yeah.
None of that money ever comes out of the pot.
No.
So if there's
we had 50p on, and that covers the cost of Stripe card transaction, and that is it. It's it's as simple as that. We do not profit from donations, and that is never going to change. That was always the principle of ours, that I don't want to profit from a charity. I don't want to profit from someone's kind donation. It just felt wrong, and it still feels like, I would never want to do that. So,
and that's why when you check out,
and we're completely transparent about that as well. So anybody can drop us a message if they're unsure of how we operate. Then ask us. I'll tell you.
That's why when you check out, there's a little pop up at the end. Honestly, those contributions.
Oh yeah, like we say to people, like, thank you for your donation. If you can contribute £1, £2, £5, whatever, to help us keep going, those contributions mean so much, because that's the thing that comes to us.
Yeah.
That's where we can keep the website running, keep the kettle on, basically.
And it is now
my job.
It's your job.
Yeah, so we also got funding from a local organisation called GMCVO, and that was to cover wages, to cover marketing, and to allow us to expand, and expand we did. So sort of going into the last Christmas that we've just had, Christmas 2020, to put it into context, our first Christmas, as I say, we did £500 in the first 2 months. In those 2 months, a year later, we did over £12,000 worth of donations, which is an amazing ramping up of,
Absolutely
amazing. Yeah, we did 7,000 item donations in the first year, across 11 different cities of the UK. We now work with animal charities, elderly people's charities, children's charities, family charities, women's charities. And that's going to keep growing into veteran charities, disability. We just had our first disability charity get in touch yesterday, and we're going to be setting them up with their own shop and what they need. And basically, we're just going to continue this idea of, if a charity has to spend their own funding or their own donation money on an item, that item can be given by a member of the public. And one of the things that we're not trying to do, we're not trying to get rid of financial donations. Every charity needs your standing orders going out every month. They need that, and it's so, so, so valuable. And so please, if you do that, or you're thinking about doing that, it's an amazing thing. So yeah, what we're doing now is we are here in February 2021, hopefully coming out of lockdown soon, and we're about to launch a new website. Are we going to say what the website's called?
I think we should.
I mean, the podcast gives a bit of a clue.
Yeah, if you were listening carefully at the beginning. So, as we move forward, as we grow, as we look to become not just a passion project, but a sustainable business, there's been a decision. We're rebranding. And it's a bold one, but the Hope Revolution will continue to exist. That's the official company name. But
that's the CIC. That's the thing
CIC.
that runs all of these things.
And there's lots of other exciting things for
outside of the website.
Outside of the website.
Like,
that will be part of the Hope Revolution.
Yes.
But the website itself is going to become
givetoday.co.uk.
givetoday.co.uk.
Nice little jingle. We are adding a whole load of new features, including a section which is just for local businesses. One of the things that we've always been looking to do is not only link public with donations that they can give to charities in their area, but also businesses that are looking to increase their CSR.
I think during the pandemic, we've all realised that we want to be more supportive of ethical companies that are doing their bit in their community and doing good. And so we want to help you as the public and the good businesses connect and all together help charities and help good organisations doing fantastic work. Yeah. So going forwards, it's all going to be in one big amazing place on givetoday.co.uk.
Now we have our conversation with Bronte. Thanks for listening. Ta-ra. So, first of all, Bronte, hello and welcome to mine and Bryony's first podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's exciting to be the debut
It
guest.
is no pressure. So, first of all, for people who have not heard about Big Issue North, if you could tell us a little bit about what the charity does and what your role is within the charity.
Yeah, so Big Issue North is a street paper, and normally it's sold on streets around the northwest Yorkshire and the Humber by people who are either homeless or vulnerably housed. So about a third of our vendors are homeless, and the rest face other barriers to mainstream employment. So that might be things like they might not have any qualifications or much work experience, or they might have mental or physical illnesses that prevent them from working other forms of employment. They might not have a bank account, they might not have ID, they might have care responsibilities, they might be struggling with substance abuse. So all kinds of reasons why they might not be in mainstream employment. They might not speak fluent English is another common issue for a lot of our new vendors. So that's how we normally work. Obviously during lockdown, there have been various issues with that, which we'll probably get into later. But that's basically what Big Issue North is. And I do fundraising and communications for Big Issue North and for the Big Issue North Trust, which is our charitable branch, which is kind of the area that we work on with you guys. And so I do everything from managing our social media accounts to organising events to kind of launching various fundraising schemes, applying for grants. So it's a really varied job that covers kind of everything to do with promoting what we do and funding what we do. So yes, it's interesting work.
It sounds it. So what made you want to get into this line of work? Have you a background in doing this kind of thing, or was this your first job in this sector?
Yes, so this is my first paid job in the sector. So before that, I'd worked in journalism, and before that, I'd been an English teacher and tutor. I moved to Manchester from the south. People can probably tell from my accent that the north is not it's not my native territory.
No.
I moved up to do a master's degree, and I lived just a few minutes from the headquarters of Big Issue North. So I was kind of vaguely aware of the organisation. But I'd done other work before that was kind of vaguely related. So when I was based in the south, I was involved in my local Labour Party, and some people from that founded a left-wing film society where every month we'd screen a film that had something to do with a social issue, and we would fundraise for a related charity. So like when we showed I, Daniel Blake, we raised money for food banks, for example.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, so yeah, it was really fun. So I got involved in some fundraising stuff for that. So it was something I was already interested in and had a bit of experience in. But I really wanted to do something that would actually make a difference to people's lives. You know, I didn't want to do a job that would just be about generating money for someone who already had a lot of money. I wanted to do something that would actually make a positive impact. So this job came up just as I was finishing my master's. And like I said, I lived just a few minutes down the road. So it was perfect, really. So yeah, so I've been doing it for about a year and a half now, and yeah, really enjoying it.
What would you say is your favourite part about the job? Because obviously it sounds like it's really quite varied.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. I suppose there are parts of the job that I really enjoy, like I love organising events, but I also just like knowing that what I'm doing is making a difference to people, especially during this lockdown. I think it's been really depressing for a lot of people, and you know, you turn on the news and everything's always bad news on the news, but especially so this year. And it's just nice to know that what I'm doing makes kind of some small difference into, you know, reducing the suffering of people, especially, you know, our vendors have had a really awful time the last year. And so just to know that I'm doing something that's kind of alleviating that in some small ways, got to be my favourite part of the job. That's very cliche.
No, it's absolutely not. That's it's funny you should say that, because I was recently chatting with a lady who runs one of our other charities in Birmingham, and I asked her that question in a Zoom chat, and she said pretty much exactly the same thing. The best part is waking up and knowing that I'm going to be doing something good today and making a difference. So yeah, it's a great answer, I think.
Yeah, I must admit, one of my favourite things is when you post out with a new vendor story, and you get to see people's backgrounds, but also how far they've come and what a big difference it's made to them to have the independence that comes with employment.
Yeah, it's so lovely to hear those stories. I think especially because a lot of people who don't really realise how we work don't realise that they are working. So vendors buy the magazines from our offices for £1.50 and they sell them on for £3 when they're able to work. So they are self-employed, they're legally recognised as self-employed. And that's so important to our vendors for so many reasons. And you know, we'll talk to people who have had some really traumatic experiences in the past. They might have been victims of abuse, or they've fled war, or, you know, they've had some really traumatic experiences, and to be able to have some independence and to be able to take care of themselves and to take care of their loved ones is so important to them. So it's really nice to be able to share those stories, especially when, you know, we still get people, you know, assuming that they're just getting money for nothing, which is just not the case at all.
Yeah. So, I mean, how have the service users adapted with what's been going on?
It's been really tough. They haven't been able to work whilst the national lockdowns have been in place. We're not classed as an essential business. So for months now in the past year, they've been unable to work, which has been really, really hard. So we launched a hardship fund, which we've been using to provide financial aid to vendors. But it has been really hard for people. We've heard some really harrowing stories about how much people have struggled, not just financially, but, you know, just with the fact that they're not able to work. They're dependent on people's generosity, and people have been very generous, but obviously in terms of self-esteem, that can be a bit of a hit for people. So it has been really tough, but luckily we have had a lot of donations to our hardship fund, so we have been able to support people, but emotionally that's had a big effect on vendors.
I can imagine.
Yes, I imagine that workers had to adapt quite differently then to cope with your vendors not being out and working, and also, I guess, being able to provide them with the emotional support.
Yeah, so we've completely had to change how we work as an organisation, really. So instead of being sold on the streets, the magazine's being sold in supermarkets. So it's available from Sainsbury's, McColl's, Booths, and did I say the Co-op? The Co-op.
Yep.
And it's being sold online as well through a website called Issue, which is ISSUU. So that's been completely different, because obviously our entire business model is based around vendors being the ones who sell the magazine.
Yeah.
When vendors have been able to work, obviously a lot's changed in that sense as well. So we've had to invest in lots of PPE, which you guys have been really helpful in providing. And we've also had people donating handmade face masks and visors and things like that. And we've also invested in some sum-up machines, which are contactless card readers. That was a bit of a challenge, because all card readers, you either have to have a smartphone or you have to have an address to use it. And all of, you know, none of our vendors, those things don't apply to all of our vendors. So we opted for sum-ups which you need an address for, but a third of our vendors, like I mentioned, are currently homeless, so they can't actually use those at the moment. But it did mean that a lot more of our vendors were able to accept cashless payments. It's obviously too early to say exactly the impact that's had yet, but we're hoping that that will be a really good long-term investment, because obviously we're becoming increasingly cashless as a society, which is something that we know has impacted on vendors' ability to work prior to the pandemic. But yeah, it's just completely changed the way we work. So we've had to move fundraising events online. We've had to do all of our kind of general fundraising online through digital platforms. Again, obviously your service has been really useful for that. But it has been a massive shift in the last year. It's been a challenge for everyone. We're getting a bit more used to it now, but yeah, we're just working in such a different way to how we normally work. It's been a bit of a shock to the organisational system.
I can imagine. Obviously, one of the other things I think that was really cool that you did, well, there's two things actually. One was the necklaces with the big issue paper. Yeah. You got some of those, right?
I actually purchased some of the necklaces, some of the jewellery.
Oh, amazing!
Or using the magazines, and I absolutely love them. I wear a different one every single day. They're so creative and such a fantastic way to use. Obviously, I think it was all the magazines that couldn't go out at the beginning of all of this.
Yeah, so we printed thousands of magazines for the week beginning the 23rd of March last year. And then obviously there was the lockdown announcement and vendors couldn't sell. So we'd spent a lot of money on them and we didn't want them to go to waste. So yeah, we put out this call on social media and via email to our subscribers asking if anyone would be interested in making them into things like jewellery. And there was one woman called Alison, she runs a website called Beagle Bum Jewellery, and she made loads of amazing necklaces out of them and some other pieces of jewellery. And yeah, that's made us a lot of income in the shop, and it's also just been a really nice way to promote our work and kind of raise awareness of the situation that we're in and that vendors are facing. So yeah, that's been a really nice kind of positive highlight of the year.
Absolutely. I mean, also one of the other things was the live streaming of the bands and artists that you put on. Myself, I come from an events background, and that's something that once lockdown is over, we're going to be looking to do. Do you think that the event side and the going down the music route is something that Big Issue North is going to continue, or was that just a summer thing?
Yeah, so normally every year we do a touring festival that goes around the north called the Big Basque, and we'll go to different cities in the north. So last year we did Manchester, Liverpool and Preston, and we have various artists who perform, and just like our online event, it's free to attend, but people can donate, they can purchase merchandise, they can enter a raffle, things like that. So this year we were going to write it off entirely originally, and then Antonia Charlesworth, who's our deputy editor, she was interviewing Karima Francis, who's a singer-songwriter from Blackpool, and Karima asked about how we were coping with the situation, how vendors were coping. Antonia told her about all of the issues that we were facing, and she said she wanted to help. So we ended up working with her to move the Big Busk online. It became the Big Busk at Home. We did it as a kind of live stream thing. It went out across all of our social media channels simultaneously. We have an in-house designer called Mark, who's also a musician, and he's really good with things like that. So he did all the technical side, but it was really fun, and it really worked well because obviously people from all around the world could come and see the bands that they like. People might not, even if they really loved an artist, they might not go all the way to a city a long way from where they are for, a 20-minute set. But because it was all online, people could come and see their favourite artists. And then we also had people who just supported us, who were discovering new artists. So it worked really well on both sides. And it was actually really successful. So the amount of money we raised in that one day was actually a lot more than what we normally make in an average day during our regular Big Busk. So yeah, it's definitely something that we want to continue. Obviously, we're really looking forward to being able to do live events again. But yeah, there are definitely benefits of this. And I think also from a kind of accessibility standpoint, it didn't involve standing around all day. You could just watch from the comfort of your living room. So it definitely had some benefits that I think we would definitely be keen to continue to kind of make use of post-pandemic.
Yeah, it's really easy to see the negatives of everything that's going on, but I think there's been so much creativity, there's been so much progress in terms of, like you said, accessibility for events and accessibility in terms of the contactless payments for your vendors, and that might have taken years to come into place if it wasn't for all of this. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think we've just been able to raise our profile a lot. We've been on BBC News, we've been on ITV News. Just to be able to kind of spread the word about what we do has been really good. And we've received funding that we wouldn't otherwise have received. And obviously it's been a difficult year for us financially, but we've had funding that's allowed us to invest in things like the contactless payment devices. And yeah, obviously it's been a really hard year, but there have definitely been highlights that I think will kind of improve our work in the years to come as well.
Good stuff. So, ourselves, we've seen. I mean, we only see the generous side of things with the donations that we do, but we've, especially with what's been going on, seen some incredibly generous people. I mean, just before Christmas, we just done our tallying up, and we did almost 6,000 items donated across the country, which is just. In the middle of everything that's going on, the fact that people were really looking to help, and obviously with the PP campaigns that we did with you, we saw people who were prepared to donate the amount that they were saving by not having to commute to work and things like that. And people were really being very generous. Yeah, what sort of things have you seen?
Oh, loads of amazing things, really. So just at the beginning of lockdown, it was quite a stressful time. Definitely the most stressful period for me at this job. And then we got an email from a woman whose father had sadly passed away, and he'd left her £150,000. And she decided that she would split it between 3 causes that have been important to him in his life. And so she gave £50,000 to us, which was just amazing. Yeah, it completely kind of transformed what we were able to do for vendors. And, you know, I really don't know what position we'd have been in then or what position we'd be in now if we hadn't had that donation. So that was just amazing. And then lots of things. We launched a new scheme recently called Vendor Champions, which is basically just encouraging people to get involved in making their local area just a really good place for vendors to sell. And that can be literally anything. So, for example, there's a branch of the Co-op at Manchester Victoria where we have a vendor who sells outside, and there's a woman who works there called Elsa, and she and her team have just been amazingly supportive of him. You know, things like letting him use their facilities, looking after his belongings. If he has to pop off anywhere, they give him gifts. They're always popping out to make sure he's all right, that no one is treating him badly, he has everything he needs. They just are amazing. They're so supportive. And then we have completely different things, like we have people who've donated loads of knitted items. So there are 2 groups, there's one called Anti-Social and there's one called the UK Hand Knitting Association, and they donated loads of knitted items over the kind of Christmas period to our vendors. We have people like Karima who've helped us to organise events. So we've just seen so many amazing things in the past year. I couldn't even list them here because I'd be talking for so long. We've seen so many amazing things.
It's good though. It's good that there's so many nice people. Everybody's banding together. There's some positives to all of this. The goodness in people is showing. So
yeah, it is, and it's really nice to see. And I think it's been particularly visible this year. Maybe partly because our work and our kind of vendors' situation has been more visible, but we've definitely felt that people have been more actively involved with our work this year, and partly because of organisations like yours that have kind of given people another route into supporting our work and supporting other charities' work. But we've definitely felt that people have been particularly supportive in the last year, which has been really nice when things have been really hard. And it's been nice for the vendors as well, you know, especially vendors who are really isolated, to know that there are people who care about them. That's been really lovely.
Yeah, good. So I mean, you've mentioned about the hardship fund, you mentioned about the magazines in the supermarkets, the craft items that people can go and buy on your website that are from the old magazines. And those are all really fantastic, and we definitely encourage listeners to go out, check them out, check out the rest of the work that you guys are doing.
We'll put some links in the description.
There will be links. But in terms of the items, the physical items, the ones that you can obviously give to your vendors to let them know that A, people care, and B, help them out with their day-to-day life. What items right now would really, really help people?
So a really useful thing that we have on our shop with you guys is rucksacks, and that's always a big need for us because it's so useful for vendors, especially kind of, you know, when hopefully we're hoping in maybe March or April vendors will be able to start selling again. That's quite a rainy time of year, so it's really good for them to be able to keep their magazines dry. It's good for them to be able to take food out with them so they don't have to spend money on buying lunch out. It's just, you know, it's just really useful for them to be able to have something like that to carry their belongings in. There's also various kind of hygiene products, so things like baby wipes, soaps, that sort of thing is really useful, especially, you know, in this current situation where hygiene is particularly important. That's really useful for our vendors, just to make sure that, you know, they're not having to budget for something that is really particularly crucial now. And also things like, there are some baby items on there like nappies. Quite a lot of our vendors have young children, and obviously this year's been horrendously difficult for them trying to provide for their children when it's, you know, so hard for them to provide for themselves. So things like that are really appreciated. But really everything that's on the shop is hugely useful and appreciated. So anything that people can afford and want to purchase would be a massive help and would be really appreciated by us and by the vendors.
That has been amazing. We will link all of the things that Bronte has mentioned. And Bronte, thank you so much for being on our very first podcast.
Yeah, thank you for putting up with us being maybe not as slick as we will be in a couple of times.
Yeah, of course.
No, thank you so much. It was really good to talk to you and it's nice to reflect on some positive things rather than always worrying about the difficult things. So that was really nice.
Yeah, I agree.